Sometimes the greatest journeys we'll ever take won't require a single step forward. They begin instead with a pause, a breath, a sudden silence in the noise. There's a kind of magic that unfolds when we stop racing towards something and begin sitting with what already is. It's in that stillness, so easily overlooked, so easily drowned out by urgency and pressure, that the soul begins to speak. And when it does, it doesn't whisper in logic or timelines. It speaks in the language of intuition, of memory, of longing. It asks questions we've tried to avoid for years. It brings to the surface all the things we thought we buried long ago. But here's the beautiful paradox. What feels like unraveling is often the beginning of becoming. We spend so much of our lives wrapped up in the chase, chasing dreams, chasing success, chasing love, approval, understanding. We believe that somewhere just beyond the next hill, the next job, the next person, we'll find it, whatever it is for us. Fulfillment, maybe. Peace. The elusive feeling that we're finally okay. But every time we get close, the horizon moves, the bar shifts, the satisfaction fades, and we find ourselves sprinting again, wondering why we're so tired, so disconnected, so unsure of who we really are anymore. It's not our fault. We were taught to achieve, not to understand, to outperform, not to feel. We were taught that healing was weakness, that vulnerability was something to overcome, not something to honor. So we built armor. We wore masks. We smiled when we were breaking, worked harder when we needed rest, and stayed quiet when our hearts were screaming for truth. But eventually something gives. The cracks appear, the questions return, and we realize that maybe, just maybe, there's more to this life than being impressive. Maybe the deeper purpose isn't to rise above everything, but to go within it, to sit in the storm and learn how to hold ourselves through it all. This is where the real journey begins, not with answers, but with a willingness to listen, not with fixing, but with facing. When we strip back the layers of expectation, of conditioning, of all the noise the world poured into us, what remains is raw and real and often unfamiliar. We may discover that we don't really know ourselves at all, that our likes, our dreams, our fears, they've all been shaped by someone else's blueprint. And while that realization can feel terrifying, it's also incredibly freeing. Because now, finally, we get to ask the question that matters. Who am I beneath all of this? The truth is, you're not broken. You were never broken. You were just buried, covered beneath the rubble of survival and adaptation. And now as you begin to excavate, to breathe into your own depth, you'll find pieces of yourself you forgot existed. The child who dreamed without limitation, the teenager who questioned everything, the part of you that still believes in love, in wonder, in possibility. They're all still there, waiting for your permission to come alive again. But don't be surprised if grief comes with them, because as you rediscover who you are, you'll also feel the weight of all the years you weren't able to be that person, the times you silence your truth to keep the peace, the dreams you put on hold to meet expectations, the moments you knew better but didn't yet have the strength to choose differently. That grief is not a punishment. It's a necessary part of the return. It's your soul mourning all the versions of you that were never fully seen, never fully heard, never fully held. This isn't a path with neat mile markers or guarantees. It's messy, unpredictable, and often it doesn't make sense to the people around you. You may outgrow friendships that were rooted in a version of you that no longer exists. You may find that old comforts now feel hollow. You may feel lonelier than you've ever felt before. But that loneliness isn't a void. It's a clearing, a sacred space where your authentic self can emerge, slowly, without pressure, without performance. And as you grow into this new version of yourself, or maybe the most ancient version, you'll begin to notice a shift. The things that used to trigger you lose their edge. The people whose opinions once shaped your every move begin to fade into the background. You stop proving and start being. You stop hustling for your worth and start embodying it. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You're not louder, you're clearer. You don't need to convince anyone anymore. You've made peace with who you are. It's in that peace that you begin to see others differently too. You recognize that most people are carrying pain they don't talk about, that behind every harsh word is usually a wounded heart, that every controlling action, every defensive wall, every outburst of anger, it's often fear in disguise. And with that awareness comes compassion. Not the kind that makes you a doormat, but the kind that lets you love without losing yourself. You set boundaries not to push others away, but to keep your inner world sacred. You walk away when necessary, not out of spite, but out of love for your own peace. And slowly life begins to look different. Not because the world changed, but because your perception did. You start finding beauty in the ordinary, gratitude in the simple, purpose in the quiet. The sunset becomes a sermon. The breeze becomes a blessing. The cup of tea in your hands becomes a ritual. You no longer need grand moments to feel alive. You are awake in the now. And this presence, this awareness, becomes your superpower. You no longer chase love. You become love. You no longer seek validation. You own your truth. You no longer fear change. You welcome it as the dance of life. And yes, you'll still fall. You'll still doubt. You'll still have days where it all feels too much. But now you know how to hold yourself through it. You don't abandon yourself anymore. You sit beside your fear and say, I'm here. I've got you. We'll get through this together. This is the journey the world doesn't talk about. The invisible transformation, the quiet revolution. It's not about having the perfect morning routine or achieving inner peace once and for all. It's about becoming more and more you every single day. It's about coming back to your own heartbeat, your own rhythm, your own light, and letting that light guide you, even when the path ahead isn't clear. Because clarity doesn't always come first. Sometimes you have to move in faith. Sometimes you have to trust the whisper. Sometimes you have to leap before you're ready. And in doing so, you discover a strength you didn't know you had. A resilience that doesn't come from force, but from surrender. A wisdom that's been inside you all along, just waiting for silence to speak. You are not late. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. Every detour, every delay, every disappointment, it all brought you here, to this moment, to this awakening, to this sacred invitation to stop hiding, stop shrinking, and start living fully, freely, fiercely, with your whole heart on fire. You are not here to impress the world. You're here to express your soul, to pour your truth into everything you touch, to show up with love, with courage, with presence, not because it's easy, but because it's who you are. And that is more than enough. The strange thing about suffering is that we often mistake it for punishment, as if pain is something we must earn through mistakes or missteps. But pain doesn't knock on our door as a judge. It comes as a teacher. It arrives to show us the places within ourselves we've avoided for far too long. It's a quiet, stubborn force that sits beside us when the world goes quiet. It doesn't speak in full sentences or logical arguments. It speaks in emotions, in tight chests, in sleepless nights, in trembling hands. It speaks through the ache of memories we thought we'd forgotten, through the longing that wraps itself around the most ordinary moments. And we spend so much time trying to outrun it, as if our healing lives in the next job, the next relationship, the next escape. But wherever we go, we bring ourselves. We bring our wounds, our fears, our unmet needs. Until we stop and turn around to face them, They follow us like shadows, asking again and again to be seen. That moment of turning around, that's where transformation begins. Not when life is easy, not when everything is falling into place, but when we choose to sit with what hurts instead of silencing it. It's not a glamorous moment. There's no applause, no fireworks, just you and your honesty, you and your truth, you and the soft but steady voice that whispers, "I'm tired of pretending." And once you admit that, once you give yourself the permission to stop performing, a kind of unraveling begins. It's slow at first. You might cry without knowing why. You might feel exhausted in your bones, like you've been carrying invisible weights for years. You might feel lost, even though you haven't moved an inch. That's because you're beginning to feel, to really feel. And feeling after a lifetime of numbness can feel like falling apart. But you're not falling apart. You're falling into yourself, into the parts of you that were silenced, into the child who never got to cry, into the teenager who was told to toughen up, into the adult who has spent too many years pretending everything's fine. And the more you feel, the more you remember, not just pain, but power. You remember what it's like to be honest, to say no when you mean it, to say yes when it's right, to stop living for other people's comfort, to begin living for your own truth. That's what awakening feels like. Not some sudden enlightenment, but a slow, deliberate return to yourself. And that return comes with grief, not just for what happened to you, but for what didn't, for the love you needed and never received, for the moments you needed someone to stand beside you and instead face the storm alone, for the time you lost trying to become someone you're not. Grief doesn't mean weakness. It means you're finally telling the truth about your life, about your heart, about the things you carry and the weight they still hold. And grief, when given space, softens into something else. Compassion for yourself, for others, for this whole human experience with all its chaos and beauty. You begin to see people differently. You begin to notice the pain behind their eyes. You begin to listen more and judge less, because now you understand what it feels like to hide behind a smile. You understand what it means to feel alone in a crowded room. You've been there, and that knowing creates a quiet kindness in you. You don't need to prove you're right anymore. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. And that presence becomes a gift to the people around you. Not because you have the answers, but because you have the courage to sit with the questions. And the questions will keep coming. Who am I when I'm not trying to impress anyone? What do I really want from this life? What would I do if I stopped being afraid of failure? These aren't questions with quick answers. They're questions you live with, questions you explore through choices, through experiences, through quiet moments with yourself. And slowly they lead you toward a life that feels like your own. Not a life built from expectations, but from alignment. Not a life shaped by fear, but by authenticity. It might not look impressive from the outside, but it feels true on the inside. And that truth, however quiet, is worth more than 1,000 accolades. But living your truth isn't always easy. In fact, it often requires letting go of everything that's not aligned. The roles you played to keep others happy, the dreams that were never really yours, the relationships that were built on who you used to be, not who you're becoming. Letting go can feel like loss. And in some ways it is, but it's also liberation. Because every time you release what no longer serves you, you make space for what does. And what comes into that space, peace, clarity, real connection, is so much more nourishing than what you left behind. You'll notice the change, not all at once, but in little things. In how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. In how your body relaxes in the presence of people who feel safe. in how you no longer need to be the loudest in the room to feel seen. Your confidence shifts from something you wear like a mask to something that radiates from the inside. You begin to trust yourself, not because you're flawless, but because you've made it through things that once seemed impossible. Because you know your heart, and you're finally listening to it. And as you keep walking this path, not toward perfection, but toward wholeness, you begin to feel a quiet strength rising in you. The strength to say no without guilt, the strength to walk away from what drains you, the strength to rest when you need it, the strength to show up fully, even when your voice shakes. That's not weakness, that's courage. That's what it looks like to live awake, to stop running from life and start meeting it exactly where it is. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to heal overnight. You just need to be willing to keep showing up for yourself. Day after day, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're not too much or not enough. You're human, and that's more than enough. Your story matters. Your healing matters. Your existence is not an accident. It's a sacred unfolding. There will be days when you forget all of this. Days when the old voices get loud again, when doubt creeps in, when you question your worth. On those days, come back to this truth. You are already whole, even in your mess, even in your fear, even in your longing. You are not a problem to solve. You are a mystery to unfold. And every step you take into that mystery is a step toward your deepest self. Not the self the world told you to be, but the self you were always meant to become. This is not the easy path, but it is the honest one. The path of inner truth. The path of healing, not just for yourself, but for the generations who came before you and the ones who will come after. Because every time you choose compassion over judgment, presence over perfection, truth over performance, you shift something in yourself, in your family, in the world. That's the power of inner work. It doesn't just change your life, it creates a ripple, a quiet, unstoppable ripple that moves outward in ways you may never fully see. And if you ever feel alone on this path, remember this: there are others walking it too. You may not see them, but they exist. Quiet warriors of the heart, people who are doing the hard work of becoming, who are choosing growth even when it hurts, who are choosing honesty even when it's inconvenient, who are learning how to be gentle with themselves even after years of self-criticism. They are your people, and one day your light will help guide someone else through their darkness, just as someone else's light once helped guide you through yours. You're not here to get everything right. You're here to feel, to grow, to connect, to love, to fall and rise and fall again, to keep showing up with open hands and a braver heart. That is enough. You are enough. And this journey, messy, sacred, real, is exactly where you need to be. There comes a moment, often when you least expect it, when everything you thought you needed begins to lose its grip. The validation, the approval, the constant pursuit of proving yourself. It all starts to feel hollow. And not because you failed to achieve it, but because you've started to outgrow the version of yourself that needed it in the first place. It sneaks up on you. One day, the things you used to chase with such urgency feel like echoes of someone else's dream. You look around and realize that you've been living inside a framework that never truly belonged to you. It was stitched together by expectation, survival, maybe even fear, but not by truth. And when you finally see that, something shifts. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a deep sigh, a subtle exhale from your soul that says, I'm ready to return to myself. Returning doesn't mean going backward. It doesn't mean retreating into who you used to be. It means uncovering what was always there beneath the layers you were forced to wear. It means stripping away the noise, the performance, the constant doing, until what's left is something raw and unpolished and real. And that realness isn't loud. It doesn't scream for attention. It sits quietly in the corner of your being, waiting for you to come home. It waits through the years of pretending, through the nights of silent crying, through the seasons of burnout and disconnect. It waits, not with judgment, but with love. The kind of love that doesn't demand anything from you except your presence. But presence is harder than it sounds. It requires facing yourself, not just the curated version, but the one you've hidden. The jealous parts, the angry parts, the hurt child who still flinches at the sound of rejection. We like to believe healing is about becoming better, but the truth is, healing is about becoming honest. It's about sitting down with your shadow and listening without the need to fix or change. Because sometimes what your pain needs most is simply to be witnessed. Not solved, not silenced, just seen. There is sacredness in that seeing. When you finally allow yourself to stop running, to stop explaining, to stop editing who you are to make others comfortable, you make space for your soul to breathe. And that breath, that long exhale of being, is where your healing begins to deepen. It's where you start to remember your worth outside of productivity, your value beyond what you can offer others. It's where you begin to embody the truth that you were never meant to earn your right to exist. You already belong. This kind of remembering often comes at a cost, because when you wake up to your truth, you start to notice where you've been living in a lie. And that awareness can be painful. You begin to see the friendships that were built on mutual avoidance, the relationships that depended on your silence, the jobs that consumed your energy but fed nothing to your soul. And walking away from those things isn't always a bold, clean break. Sometimes it's a slow unraveling, a quiet knowing that says, this no longer fits. And even though it hurts, even though your hands tremble as you let go, you know in your heart, it's time. And as you let go, something remarkable happens. You start to create space, not just externally, but within. You begin to hear your own voice more clearly, not the one that mimics others, the one that was buried under years of pleasing, performing, pretending. It's soft at first, but it's steady. It speaks in nudges, in gut feelings, in gentle tugs toward things that feel like home. And as you learn to trust that voice, you start living with more alignment. You stop saying yes when your body screams no. You stop shrinking to make others feel big. You stop abandoning yourself in exchange for temporary belonging. You learn that real belonging doesn't ask you to be less. It invites you to be more of who you truly are. And that kind of belonging is rare, but it's worth waiting for. Because once you taste it, once you find spaces where your authenticity is not just tolerated but celebrated, you'll never again settle for the counterfeit kind. You'll stop begging for crumbs of love from people who don't know how to nourish. You'll stop editing your truth to fit into rooms that were never built for your fullness. You'll choose solitude over settling, integrity over image, peace over performance. That's the kind of strength no one can see from the outside. The kind that isn't flashy or loud, but rooted and unwavering. The strength that comes from knowing yourself so deeply, no one else's opinion can define you. And that doesn't mean you become invincible. You'll still have days of doubt, of fear, of ache. But those feelings won't derail you, because you know they're visitors, not facts. You've learned to sit with them, not become them. You've learned that healing isn't about always feeling good. It's about feeling fully. And that includes the messy, uncomfortable parts too. You begin to carry your pain differently, not like a burden to be ashamed of, but like a map of where you've been. You stop hiding your scars. You start honoring them, because they remind you of your strength, your resilience, your capacity to survive what you once thought would destroy you. And in doing so, you become a living testament to the power of presence. A reminder that even in your most broken moments, you were worthy. You still are. You might notice that others start to respond differently. Some will be drawn to your authenticity. They'll feel seen in your honesty. Others may pull away, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your light makes it harder for them to hide in their shadows. That's not your burden to carry. You're not here to dim for anyone. You're here to shine, not in a way that blinds others, but in a way that reminds them of their own light. And sometimes that reminder is what sparks their journey too. Without you saying a word, your presence becomes a mirror, a reflection of what's possible when someone dares to come home to themselves. That's the ripple of awakening. It's not about fixing others. It's about becoming so anchored in your own truth that you create a space where others feel safe to explore theirs. This journey doesn't end. It deepens. With every layer you peel back, with every mask you remove, you come closer to your essence. And that essence is where your power lives. Not the power to control or dominate, but the power to live with integrity, to love with depth, to speak with clarity. It's the kind of power that doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. You begin to notice beauty in places you used to overlook, the softness in a stranger's smile, the comfort in a quiet afternoon, the magic in mundane moments. Because you're present now. You're no longer rushing past your life in search of something more. You've realized that what you were searching for has always been inside you. And that knowing changes everything. You wake up differently. You move through your day with more intention. You listen more, speak less, love deeper. Not because you're trying to be a better person, but because you've stopped pretending. You're finally living from your core. And that changes how you relate to the world. You stop chasing happiness like a finish line. You start cultivating joy in the here and now. You stop measuring your worth by how much you produce. You start honoring your being as sacred as enough. There will still be hard days. Days when the old wounds feel fresh again. Days when the voices of doubt grow loud. But now, you meet those days with gentleness. You wrap yourself in grace. You hold space for your pain without letting it define you. That's the real alchemy of healing. Not erasing your past, but integrating it. Letting it inform you, not imprison you. Letting it guide you, not govern you. And as you keep walking, something even more beautiful begins to unfold. You start to experience freedom, not the kind the world sells you, not the freedom to consume or to escape, but the freedom to be messy and magical, to be in process and still at peace, to be a work in progress and still worthy of love. That kind of freedom isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It lives in your breath, in your choices, in the way you show up for yourself every day. You're no longer waiting for someone to save you. You've realized that the savior you were waiting for was always inside you. You've stopped outsourcing your power. You've stopped abandoning yourself for the illusion of safety. You've chosen truth over comfort. And that choice, though difficult, has led you back to the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. There's a subtle shift that begins the moment you choose yourself, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of remembrance. It starts quietly, almost like a whisper you forgot how to hear. At first, it feels unnatural, like trying to walk barefoot after years of shoes that never quite fit. Every step is sensitive. You question whether it's right to say no, to disappoint others, to risk being misunderstood. But somewhere beneath that unease, there's a new kind of strength blooming. A soft, unshakable knowing that says, I am allowed to live for me. And as that truth takes root, everything changes. Not all at once, but gradually, like dawn bleeding into the sky. You start to notice the places you used to abandon yourself. The conversations where you silenced your truth to keep the peace. The dreams you put on hold because someone else needed you to shrink. The love you gave away hoping it would be enough to make someone stay, and it stings. It's a quiet ache, realizing how much of yourself you've spent trying to earn what should have been freely given. But that pain isn't here to shame you. It's here to awaken you, to show you how powerful it is to reclaim the pieces you once gave away. Reclaiming yourself is messy. It's not a tidy path of affirmations and journaling prompts. It's deep, raw work. It's crying in the car because you set a boundary and feel like the villain. It's lying awake at night wondering if you're losing everyone because you finally stopped betraying yourself. It's the ache of loneliness mixed with the strange new lightness of not having to pretend anymore. But buried within that discomfort is liberation. You start to breathe differently. You start to walk taller, not because you feel superior, but because you no longer carry the weight of other people's expectations on your back. And something else begins to unfold. You stop settling, not out of arrogance, but out of reverence. Reverence for your time, your heart, your energy. You realize that just because someone wants access to you doesn't mean they've earned it. Just because an opportunity presents itself doesn't mean it aligns with your soul. You start asking different questions. Not will they like me, but does this feel like truth? Not is this what I should do, but is this what I want to do? You realize how often you've defaulted to living in reaction, reacting to needs, to chaos, to guilt, and you begin to practice something radical, living from intention. Intention doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it looks like saying no to the party so you can sit with your thoughts. Sometimes it looks like deleting a message you were never meant to send. Sometimes it looks like walking away from a job, a friendship, a routine, because it no longer serves the person you're becoming. And those choices are terrifying. They threaten to unravel everything you've built on the foundation of fitting in. But what they offer in return is priceless, a life that belongs to you. That's the thing no one tells you about becoming yourself. It often requires unbecoming everything you thought you needed to be. It's a death of sorts, the death of the people pleaser, the overachiever, the peacekeeper who kept swallowing her truth. And like all deaths, there's grief. You grieve who you used to be, even if that version of you wasn't fully alive. You grieve the safety of old patterns, even as you celebrate your growth. And you grieve the relationships that fall away when you stop bending to stay inside them. But grief is not the enemy. It's the threshold, the initiation, the passageway between who you were and who you are becoming. And when you allow yourself to move through it, not bypass it, not numb it, but truly sit with it, you begin to reclaim the parts of yourself that were buried underneath survival. You remember how to feel without fear, how to love without losing yourself, how to speak without apology. That's when the world begins to mirror your transformation. New people enter your life not because you sought them out, but because your energy shifted. You no longer attract chaos disguised as connection. You stop resonating with spaces that reward conformity over courage. Instead, you start drawing in relationships that nourish, not deplete. People who don't need you to shrink for their comfort. Opportunities that align with your values, not just your bank account. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to see yourself differently. Not as someone who's behind or broken or too much, but as someone who's finally becoming whole. Wholeness isn't perfection. It's not the absence of flaws or wounds. It's the integration of them. It's the moment you realize you can carry your past without letting it define you. That you can honor your mistakes without letting them shame you. That you can be in process and still be enough. And that realization becomes your compass. You no longer need external validation to feel worthy. You begin to walk through the world with an internal steadiness, a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am. And that knowing is magnetic. It draws in everything that's meant for you, not because you chase it, but because you've made space for it by releasing everything that isn't. You start living in rhythm with your own soul. You wake when your body says it's time. You move in ways that feel joyful, not punishing. You speak with care, not control. You listen deeply, not just to others, but to yourself. You rest without guilt. You dream without limits. You begin to trust that your desires are not random. They are breadcrumbs leading you back to your truth. And the more you follow them, the more alive you become. Not just existing, but living, with presence, with passion, with purpose. And as you live this way, you inspire others, not through advice or instruction, but through embodiment. You become a permission slip, a living, breathing example that it's possible to live authentically, even in a world that profits from your self-doubt. That it's possible to slow down in a culture obsessed with speed. That it's possible to create a life rooted in meaning, not just metrics. You become proof that peace isn't found in perfection, it's found in presence. And that presence ripples. It changes the way you parent, the way you partner, the way you participate in your community. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from love. You hold space instead of offering solutions. You ask questions instead of giving advice. You become curious instead of judgmental. And that shift, though subtle, creates waves, because presence is contagious. When one person chooses to live in truth, it gives others the courage to do the same. But none of this happens overnight. It's a journey, a practice, a daily returning. Some days you'll feel clear and grounded. Other days you'll forget everything you've learned. And that's okay. Growth isn't linear. Healing isn't a checklist, it's a spiral. You revisit the same wounds with new awareness. You fall down and rise with deeper grace. You lose yourself and find new layers each time. That's the beauty of this path. It never ends. It keeps inviting you deeper. Not because you're broken, but because you're infinite. And somewhere along the way, you stop striving for arrival. You realize there is no destination, no final version of yourself you must become. You are already enough even as you evolve. You are allowed to rest, to change your mind, to grow slowly. You no longer measure your worth by how productive you are, how many followers you have, how busy your schedule looks. You measure it by how present you are, how kind you are to yourself, how deeply you love without conditions. And that shift, though invisible to most, changes everything. You begin to forgive yourself, not just for the things you did, but for the things you didn't know, for the times you stayed too long, for the ways you betrayed yourself out of fear, for the version of you who didn't have the tools you have now. You stop holding your past against yourself. You start holding it with compassion. And from that compassion, wisdom grows. A quiet, grounded wisdom that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It simply exists, steady, unshakable, real. And that's what you carry forward. Not a perfect life, not a flawless identity, but a deep, embodied truth. A knowing that you can meet yourself again and again with love. That no matter what happens, no matter what falls apart, you have yourself. And that's not a consolation prize, it's the foundation, the beginning of everything true. It's a curious thing, the way life slowly begins to feel different when you start paying attention, not just to what's happening around you, but to what's happening within you. That shift doesn't announce itself with grand events or loud declarations. It happens in the quiet corners of your day, in the way you pause before replying, choosing silence over reaction. In the way you hold your coffee a little longer in the morning, not rushing through the ritual, but savoring the stillness. In the way you notice your breath when you're walking, feeling the breeze on your face instead of staying lost in thought. These moments, small and easily missed, are where your life begins to root itself in presence. And that presence is what begins to heal you in ways you didn't know you needed. Healing doesn't always feel like light. Often it feels like everything you once buried clawing its way to the surface. It feels like sadness you can't explain, like anger you thought you'd long outgrown, like restlessness that makes you question everything you once believed. It shakes up your routines. It interrupts your patterns. It demands that you sit with the parts of yourself you've spent years trying to outrun. And yet, this discomfort is not punishment. It's clarity. It's your soul knocking, saying, there's more here. There's deeper truth if you're willing to look. And when you answer that call, not with resistance, but with curiosity, something begins to open. You start to feel again. Not just surface feelings, the polite answers we give when people ask how we're doing, but the raw, honest emotions that pulse beneath the surface. The kind of feelings that don't come with tidy labels or quick fixes, the ones that live in your chest, in your throat, in your stomach. You begin to listen to what your body has been trying to tell you all along. That lump in your throat when you say yes but mean a none. That pit in your stomach when you're in places that drain your energy. That heaviness in your chest when you've silenced your truth to avoid confrontation. These aren't signs of weakness. They're wisdom. They are your body's way of telling you what your mind has been too afraid to admit. And the more you listen, the more you begin to trust yourself. Not just on the big things, but on the little things too. You stop asking everyone else for advice before tuning in. You stop outsourcing your worth to other people's opinions. You stop needing constant reassurance that you're on the right path, because deep down, you start to know. You feel it in your gut when something's off. You feel it in your chest when something feels aligned. You stop needing to explain yourself. Not because you're closed off, but because you're anchored in your own clarity. And from that place, you begin to make different choices. Not out of fear, but from a place of self-respect. It's funny how much changes when you stop abandoning yourself. You start making room for joy, not just survival. You start doing things simply because they make your heart feel light. You dance in your kitchen again. You sing in the shower. You read books that nourish your imagination. You reach out to people not because you feel obligated, but because your heart longs for connection. You start creating, not to prove anything, but because your soul needs expression. Art, music, writing, gardening. It doesn't matter what form it takes. What matters is that it's yours. And in creating, you reclaim a part of yourself you didn't even realize had gone missing. This is where the beauty starts to flood in. When you stop living for approval and start living from alignment, life starts to feel different. You're no longer just chasing goals, you're honoring values. You're no longer seeking permission, you're choosing freedom. And that freedom is not chaotic, it's not careless, it's rooted. It comes from knowing who you are and honoring that truth, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's lonely, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And yes, it will be lonely at times. Choosing yourself in a world that taught you to seek belonging at any cost is an act of quiet rebellion. You may find yourself in spaces where you no longer fit. Conversations that once felt familiar now feel shallow. Relationships that once anchored you now feel like cages. And that dissonance hurts. It makes you question if you've done something wrong. But that ache isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're growing. You're outgrowing old containers. And sometimes, in order to expand, you have to let things fall away. Grieving those losses is part of the process. And it's not just about grieving people. It's about grieving the versions of yourself you had to become to survive. The self who overachieved to feel worthy. The self who stayed quiet to keep the peace. The self who tolerated crumbs because they didn't believe they deserved more. You honor those versions, not with shame, but with gratitude. They got you here. They did the best they could with what they knew. But now you know more. Now you choose differently, and that choice ripples through your life in ways you can't always see. You start setting boundaries, not as walls to keep people out, but as bridges to your truth. You stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop shrinking your joy to make others comfortable. And sure, some people won't understand. Some will push back, but others, the right ones, will meet you in that space with respect. They won't be threatened by your truth. They'll celebrate it. They won't demand that you dim your light. They'll help you shine brighter. And those are the people worth building with. Not the ones who need you to be small, but the ones who want you to be whole. In this space of wholeness, something sacred happens. You reconnect with your inner child, the one who dreamed without limits, who felt deeply, who laughed loudly and danced freely and believed in magic. That child is still inside you, waiting to be seen. And as you peel back the layers of conditioning and shame, you find them again. You hold them close. You let them play. You let them rest. You let them trust. Because healing isn't just about releasing pain. It's about reclaiming joy. It's about remembering that life isn't meant to be endured. It's meant to be lived. And living doesn't always mean chasing big dreams or making bold moves. Sometimes living means savoring the ordinary, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the smell of rain on pavement, the sound of laughter that fills a quiet room, the comfort of a soft blanket after a long day. These are the things that root you in the now. These are the moments that remind you, this is it. This is life. Not something to be chased or fixed or earned, but something to be felt, fully, honestly, without filters. And in that space of presence, peace begins to grow. Not the peace that comes from having everything figured out, but the peace that comes from knowing you don't need to. The peace that says, I am enough, even in the becoming. The peace that lets you rest, not because everything is done, but because you are worthy of rest. That kind of peace changes everything. It softens your relationships. It clarifies your decisions. It expands your capacity to hold space for others, because you've learned to hold space for yourself. And through it all, you begin to embody something sacred, authenticity, not as a brand, but as a way of being. You stop trying to be liked and start being real. You stop chasing relevance and start living in resonance. You stop performing and start connecting. And the more you do, the more life begins to feel like yours. Not a life you inherited, not a life you copied, but a life that was carved day by day from your deepest truth. That is the gift of this journey. Not perfection, not certainty, but alignment. A life that reflects who you really are. A life that feels like home. And in that home, there is room for all of you. The light and the shadow, the past and the possibility, the wounds and the wisdom. You no longer have to choose between being lovable and being honest. You get to be both, fully, fiercely, beautifully you. There comes a moment, subtle and profound, when the weight of pretending becomes heavier than the fear of being seen. You've carried it for so long, the need to hold it all together, to smile when you're crumbling, to play roles that were never truly yours. You've told yourself stories, carefully edited and rehearsed to survive. But beneath all of that, your truth has been humming quietly, waiting for you to finally stop and listen. And when you do, really listen, it doesn't scream, it doesn't demand. It simply whispers, I'm still here, let me in. That whisper is everything. That whisper is where the real journey begins. You begin to unravel, not fall apart, but come undone. The tightly wound threads of who you thought you had to be slowly begin to loosen. And at first, that unraveling feels terrifying because it threatens everything you built, the image, the structure, the illusion of control. But beneath the fear is a freedom you never imagined possible. Because for the first time, you're not trying to manage your life. You're beginning to feel it. Raw, unfiltered, honest. That kind of feeling hurts, but it also heals. It cracks you open so light can pour in. And once you've tasted that light, you can never go back to numbness. It's not an easy path. Not one lined with certainty or applause. In fact, it's often quiet and lonely. People won't always understand your shift. They'll miss the version of you that was easy, agreeable, predictable. They'll miss the version that said yes without hesitation, that smiled even when hurting, that bent without breaking. But you won't, because as much as that version kept you safe, it also kept you small, and you were never meant to live a small life. You were meant to expand, to stretch, to step fully into the wildness of who you are, even if it means letting go of the comfort you once clung to. You start shedding, not just people or jobs or habits, but identities. You let go of being the peacemaker if it means silencing your truth. You let go of being the achiever if it means sacrificing your well-being. You let go of being the strong one if it means carrying pain in silence. These identities may have served you once, but now they weigh you down, and shedding them feels like a death. In many ways it is. A death of illusion, of armor, of the self you wore like a mask. But in that death, something truer begins to take root. Not a new self, but your real self. Messy, imperfect, vibrant, whole. You find yourself in moments you once rushed past. The quiet mornings when the sun spills through your window, and you feel gratitude before your feet hit the ground. The late nights when your mind finally softens, and you hear your own voice instead of everyone else's. The mundane in-between spaces, waiting in line, sitting in traffic, folding laundry, that becomes sacred because you're no longer avoiding your own presence. You're beginning to like who you are in the silence. And that might be the most radical act of all. There's a tenderness that comes with this. You start treating yourself like someone you care about. You notice when you're tired and offer rest instead of criticism. You notice when you're sad and offer comfort instead of shame. You speak to yourself gently, not because you become soft, but because you become wise. You know now that harshness never built resilience. It only built walls. Real strength is soft. Real strength is being honest about what you need. Real strength is choosing to stay kind, even after life has tried to harden you. This shift doesn't mean you always have it together. Far from it.